to present Frank Goodwin, and we'll be talking about hazard communications, OSHA 29 CFR 1910.1200. Doesn't that sound exciting? Frank, take it away.
You make it sound like it's an upcoming movie here. HazCom can be an upcoming event in your plant. In fact, with the new standards they've just published, it's going to need to be an upcoming event in every business that comes under OSHA, because they've come up with new standards, or revised standards, I should say, using most of the old ones, but there are some key. Okay, am I here?
Yeah, you're there.
Oh, okay. I got a little thing that said I was muted, so I didn't know what that was. Okay. I figured it was getting bad already. People were going to cut me out. Anyway, let's take a look here. The agenda today is what is the GHS and labeling of chemicals. Now, GHS stands for the Globally Harmonized System, and I'll get into that a little bit later, and labelings. And the difference between right to know and right to understand, important dates, estimated costs, and whatever else. And if you have any questions, just feel free to bring them in. I don't expect that we're going to cover this whole PowerPoint today. I have, in my wildest imagination, I don't think could cover it all, because there's some new things I want to emphasize. But what we're going to do is go through the first few slides, which is the standard HazCom presentation, and then we're going to go into the revisions, which will probably take the majority of the rest of the time. But first of all, HazCom, the basic thing about hazard communication, or as you hear it called HazCom, is that employees have a right to know. Now that was established many, many years ago, that so many businesses used hazardous chemicals and people didn't know what they were using. And so OSHA came in and said they have a right to know. Thus you have in your facility a right to know corner, or HazCom corner, where you display the MSDS book and posters and things that telling people to be careful. This is going back to their right to know. Now, the new revisions, as you're going to see, have added to that. They not only have a right to know, but they have a right to understand. And this is where training is going to come in more and more in your workplace. But hazardous materials, HazCom, has to deal with mostly chemicals. We could say welding rods. Welding rods all have MSDSs because they make hazardous fumes. They're not a chemical, but they make hazardous fumes. So there's a number of things, but most things are in the category of chemicals. And materials that are hazardous start out as a product, a raw good, and waste. It comes out of the ground as raw goods, it's made into a product, and then it becomes a waste. And if you're familiar at all with hazardous material, you know that getting rid of waste can be more expensive and more time-consuming than buying the initial product. If you've ever had to go to a plant and clean out some of the old cabinets and you found old acids and old chemicals, and you went to dispose of them, you'll find out it probably costs you 3 times if you bought a new jug of say, cyanide, and then you want to throw it away, it'll cost you 2 or 3 times as much. Fluorescent tubes, for instance, are a hazardous material, and go ahead and dispose of them. One place I was at, we could buy new tubes, the 4-footers or the 8-footers rather, for $2 and a quarter, but someone to pick them up, take away the disposed ones, was over $3. So it varies. But back to the HazCom, employers, number one, are mandated to inform employees about the possible dangers of the chemicals they use. Now, it's not good enough, And most companies get by with it, but it's not good enough to just put the MSDS book out there and figure people are going to look at it. The only time they're going to look at it is when they need it, and then they're not going to know where to find what they want. So you need to, number one, tell them about what they use in their workplace that's dangerous, then employ and tell them how to prevent injury that might result from those chemicals. And you also need to provide the training that is so vital for that. And hazard communication is a three-way partnership. You, the employer, I think, is the key, because you're the one that has to communicate with the employees, the third leg of it. The chemical manufacturers, really, all they got to do is make sure their MSDSs are in good order, their labeling is in good order. It comes down to the employer. It's in the middle. The employer is the one that has to communicate the information. The employer is the one that has to maintain the records. The employer is the one that yada, on and on and on. And if OSHA comes into your plant, I've watched this happen over and over. They walk in, they walk up to an employee on an assembly line or in a maintenance shop, and they'll say, "Where are the MSDSs?" And do you ever see the glazed over look of a deer in the headlights? That's what happens so often. Employees have no idea what they're talking about, and they should be able to answer that. And then secondly, if they call it a material safety data sheet, they still don't know. And the third question may be, all right, you know what it is, where is it? And then the OSHA can have a man go to the MSDS, open up the book, and say, tell me what it says. I mean, this is how serious this is getting. So you're going to need to know, have your employees know what HAZCOM is, what MSDSs are, and not necessarily to understand them totally, but to have a basic understanding. You heard me say earlier, the right to know, and now it's the right to understand. Now, we'll get into that a little bit more here, but in a few moments. But what is a hazardous chemical? Well, a hazardous chemical, can be the boiling concoction that you see in the fairy tales from a witch, or it can be some minor thing that can give you a rash. It can be anything. MSDSs, by the way, must be in place and easy to find and up to date for everything you bring in the door of your plant. That is a chemical. Now, whiteout in the office is a chemical. Now, OSHA probably wouldn't do this, but they could say, where's the MSDS on whiteout? Have you got it? They could go in the restroom and find a closet where you keep the cleaning chemicals, and maybe you have an outside contractor come in and do the cleaning, and they have some acid-based toilet cleaner in there. Do you have an MSDS on that acid-based toilet cleaner? It's in your facility. You need to have it. And you need to make sure that those people coming in don't bring stuff into your plant without you knowing it and logging it in and putting it in the book. And the best thing to do is to inform every contractor and every vendor they cannot bring anything into your plant unless someone, and you appoint a person, a safety coordinator or an EHS specialist, someone must okay every product before they bring it in. One of the areas of biggest problems is you get into a maintenance shop, and the guy's trying to free up a bearing, and he runs down to Lowe's and he buys a can of degreaser or seize releaser and brings it back to the plant. The big mistake is he doesn't have an MSDS. And if OSHA came in the door at that time and wanted to see the MSDS, you could be fined. Now, I'm not going to tell you they'll do it every time. They can be reasonable or they can be unreasonable. So you need to make sure that nothing is brought into the plant, your facility, your business, without someone approving it and logging in the MSDS into your book. So that's important to know. And I go into plants and businesses all the time, and they don't know this. They don't have any concept that whiteout, for instance, can be hazardous. Windex is a chemical that's used in every facility. Guess what? Do you have an MSDS on Windex? You need to. And then the types of hazards that chemical hazards can cause, typical chemical hazards rather, can be burning skin or eyes, skin disease, long-term damage to internal organs. You can have problems with fertilization, asphyxiation, fire, chemical hazards. I love to tell the story when I'm doing a class, especially if they have met my wife, which some do, that when we were first married, she decided to clean the bathrooms, and she wanted the toilets to be real clean, and so she put bleach in it, and then added ammonia, and pretty much keeled over within a few minutes. So you got to know that certain chemicals do react, and that's what the MSDS is supposed to do, tell you those things. But employers must, number one, the acronym here is DIET. Sounds familiar, I need to do that. But develop a written hazard communication program. You must have a written program in your human resources or somewhere in your files. When OSHA comes in, they're going to want to see that written HAZCOM program, and it's going to address how you bring chemicals in the plant. It's going to address the chemicals you use. It's going to say in maintenance, we use these. Maybe you've got a laboratory, you use these things, and it has to do that. And then number 2 on it is the I, to inform employees about hazard communications. How do you go about that? How do you tell a worker in the lab that he's using something hazardous? How do you tell a worker in the maintenance shop he could be? How do you tell a worker on the assembly line? Got to have a program that shows how you do this. And by the way, that can be done with initial training and orientation. If new products are introduced, you have to take your employees and get them together and go over those new products. It can be done with toolbox talks. And, it doesn't have to be a big elaborate training session, but you do have to have everybody attend, everybody sign in. Now, signing in is important because, and as some of you know, if OSHA comes through and they look at a person, they say, where are the MSDSs, and he does the deer in the headlights look, you want to be able to go to a sign-in sheet that says, well, he went to training on such and such a date. It lasted so much time, and he took a little quiz to tell him what an MSDS was. I can't help it if he forgot it. You need to be able to verify that. And then you explain how you implement these things in the workplace, and then train the employees to recognize the hazards and what PPE they might need or what preventative measures they might have to do. And then you can communicate the hazards by, number 1, the MSDSs. And up till now, manufacturers have really run their own show on MSDSs. The basic things they put down, and people design them. They make them fancy. They make them for marketing. They put things in that aren't necessary, and some things they leave out. Well, the new standards, the new revisions are going to change that. But they must be prepared by the chemical manufacturer and describe, number 1, key thing is, this is the older ones. The new ones aren't too different, but they need to describe who the manufacturer is, what's in the product, what the physical characteristics are of the product. Maybe it's pH factor or alkaline. And then you got possible hazards, how you get exposed to it. Is it breathing, swallowing through the skin? Is it carcinogenic? How do you handle it? Emergency first aid, fire, and it goes on and on. There's a lot of things that the MSDSs cover. Now, presently, I don't think the MSDSs do a bad job. They are just a little bit confusing, and the newer ones are going to make them more uniform. Let's go to the next page here. One of the things that you've got to know is getting the information by phone is not acceptable under the mobile worksite provision. For instance, if you're a contractor and you've got a job site, you've got to have MSDSs with a supervisor somewhere where it's available to the employees. You can't just say, well, I'm going to call the office and find out. That is not acceptable. Okay, remember that. That is not acceptable. And the old standard used to say MSDSs do not have a prescribed format. I put the word revised in there because they do now. And if no MSDS has been received for a product, the employer, it's your responsibility to contact the supplier and get the MSDS and maintain a record of the contact. For instance, if you've got a chemical in your plant that you're using and all of a sudden you haven't got an MSDS, you better make a note. I called the manufacturer on August 28th at 10 o'clock. I talked to so-and-so, and they were going to send it in. And they can usually email it. But you need to make sure that you log in because, you know, in the time it takes to get that MSDS, an OSHA inspector can come in the door, find you without it, and cite you. So you need to make sure that you have it. And then the labels, and we're going to go into the new labeling, but they haven't changed a lot. They got to provide chemical name, manufacturer, health hazards, handling and storage, any safety and clothing requirements or equipment requirements. And now, the new hazard communication standard, the revisions and changes. I put this in the middle of the HAZCOM program because this is where it interacts the most. By the way, if there's any questions, feel free to stop and jiggle your phone or do something and let me know if you have a question. But the revisions and changes that are added, number one, let me say this, that I have mixed feelings about the changes. I see nothing negative about the changes. I think they're good. They've made it uniform. They've made it easier to read. What I don't like, and this is probably my age, I don't like being aligned with the UN, the globally harmonized system, and the labeling of chemicals is under the UN auspices. I don't like that. However, we got to live with it. And at this point, they can't do anything. They just set the standard. But we're in alignment with the globally harmonized system of classification and the labeling of chemicals. And it's to improve safety and health for our workers. And it has done that. It builds on our current system and just makes it, really the biggest thing is it makes it more usable. And then the chemical manufacturers, as always, are required to evaluate the chemicals they produce or they import. Now, that means that if they import something from Taiwan, they're responsible to examine the MSDS and make sure that it is correct. Not just in translation, but make sure it is correct. They can't just accept the Taiwan MSDS, and I'm using Taiwan as an example, but they've got to make sure it is correct. They got to make sure that it's right and they're not disseminating incorrect information. And then they need to make up the labels and prepare the safety data sheets according to the new standard, which we'll go over. And then it does provide a single set of harmonized criteria for classifying the chemicals and the hazards, classifying the hazard communication elements for labeling and the safety data sheets. And we'll see that in just a minute. We don't need to go over this, but it's going to improve the safety in the workplace. me give you a little bit of propaganda from OSHA. OSHA was founded in 1970 or established in 1970. And accident rates have gone down 30 to 35%. Fatalities are down almost half, 50% since then. And that's adjusting it for the population. So has it worked? Yes. Is it always right? No. Is it sometimes overkill? Yes. But we have a program that does work. And whether we like it or we don't, we need to make sure we follow what they say or we can be fined. And the HAZCOM program is to improve quality of the information for the workplace. Earlier I said right to know and right to understand. Here we're coming to that. The right to understand. You can't just throw an MSDS at a worker and expect them to know what it is. You need to take training session and go over a sample MSDS, go over the 16 categories. And one of the things that we have done, and if anyone in this webcast would like that, I've put together a list of acronyms and their definition that you can attach to your MSDS book, so that when you're reading through an MSDS and it says CAS or IDLH or PEL or any of these acronyms, if you don't know what it is, you can refer to this this index. I believe it's also on the Future Office site. But this is helping employees to understand. You know, it's like you tell your son, no, you don't want to do drugs. And you can be ornery about it, you can discipline him, but if he understands why you don't want to do drugs, why they're harmful, it's a whole different story than if you just arbitrarily say, don't do drugs. So it's an understanding of where the hazards are and why you don't want the worker to get involved with some of the chemicals that we work. Or why, you know, I wrote a blog here recently about smokers and respiratory. And, you know, some of our people who wouldn't smoke a cigarette on a bet will refuse to wear respiratory protection in the workplace. What's wrong with that picture? Well, here's the same thing. Some of the workers who will cry the most and complain the most won't follow the right safety procedures. So you need to let them know why it's harmful. Now, let's move on here so we don't get tagged. The major changes is in the classifications, the labels. The data sheets now have 16 specific sections. 16 sections in a specific order. Now that's to make it so that we always know what's on item number 1. We always know what's on item number 2 when there's an emergency. And in fact, let's go over a couple slides to the, I'm going to go to the 16 categories. Where'd they go here? Did I miss them? There they are. Okay. Let's just take a look at this for just a minute. From now on, when an MSDS is produced, number 1 is always going to be the identification, where it's made, who made it. Number 2 is always going to be the hazard identification. Number 16 or number 15 is going to be regulatory information. And so a person who is working with a chemical knows where to go. First aid is section 4. Every MSDS is going to be section 4 will be first aid. Now, all these items need to be addressed. Now, it says down here, OSHA doesn't require sections 12 to 15, but the EPA may require them. Your hazardous material disposal may require them, so they're going to be in 90% of your MSDSs. But they're all going to be the same, whereas right now, they can be in any order. You could have fire safety be the second thing. And that's not a bad thing, some man who's writing the MSDs might have a very volatile chemical, and he thinks it's more important to have it at the front end fire safety because it's a bad thing. So what we've got here is a uniformity that will be worldwide. And if this is written in French, if it's written in Japanese, written in Chinese, number 4 is always going to be first aid. And so this is the change that is the most important thing. And they're not calling them MSDSs anymore. They're just SDSs, safety data sheets. Well, let's go back here just a minute to the what you need to do and when slide. And that is chemical users are required to update the safety data sheets with new ones. Okay, that means that you should have already started getting new MSDSs from every supplier you have. Now, that means your responsibility is, you've got this MSDS book, you've had it for 10 years, you got hydrogen peroxide in there, and you've been using hydrogen peroxide in your process for years. All of a sudden now there's a new MSDS. Guess what your responsibility is? You've got to start a new book. You've got to put the new hydrogen peroxide in. You've got to archive the old ones, and you've got to start replacing all your MSDSs. And there's some dates I'll give you here later when you've got to have all new MSDSs. Now, it's also come to you that if a manufacturer doesn't get you a new MSDS, your responsibility is to call them. And you better log in. Gee, I didn't get this from XYZ company. And you need to log in when you contacted them. If it's an email, archive it. If it's a phone call, log it in that I called and who did you talk with, and say I need an updated MSDSs. Maybe they haven't got them done yet. They have a time frame to do it. But you need to be responsible to do that. And then you've got to provide the training to your employees to go over the new format, to go over what an MSDS is. And if you need to change your HAZCOM program, which this will require every program to change some, you need to do that. And then chemical producers, they're responsible to get this out to you. And then other agencies that worked in developing this was DOT. DOT is huge input on labeling. And then the EPA and Consumer Product Safety Commission. Global implementation, the new system will be throughout the world in these countries primarily, Canada, European Union, China, Australia, and Japan. All the others hopefully will fall into place. The dates that you need to remember. Now, these are important. I would put these on your calendar and work on it. Now, Future Office is going to be giving you some training materials for this, so you can use their materials. But you have by December 2013. By December 2013, you need to be able to train your employees on the new label elements and the new MSDS format, on calling it the SDS format. That's employer responsibility by December 2013. So you've got a year to get that in place. And then by June of 2015, chemical manufacturers are going to have to comply with provisions of the final rule. Distributors may ship products labeled under the old system until 2015. They have to change the MSDSs, but they can ship products with the old labels. That could have been a hardship because, a drum could be labeled and be in inventory for a while. Then by June of 2016, you need to this is the employers again, You need to update alternative workplace labeling hazard communication program and make sure every employee, okay, is trained. Make sure that I mean, this is, you got to get them trained by 2013, and then by 2016, if a new MSDS comes in, you've got to make sure they're updated. Now, technically, this means that if your office staff changes from whiteout to another product, technically you would have to train them on it. Now, that's ridiculous. You and I both know that. But in the plant or in a facility where manufacturing takes place, if you change a process and you change chemicals and you change the hazards, you need to tell the people that are doing that you've changed it, and you need to train them on any safety regulations, on any safety protective equipment, on any safety procedures that they must do. Because if you don't, you can be fined. And believe me, OSHA is going to be watching these dates. I'll guarantee you that in January of January 2014, they're going to be out there looking for heavy trained your employees. When they come in your facility, they're going to be asking you, I want to see your training records on the new HAZCOM program. I guarantee you. And if you haven't got it, you probably will get a citation. So one of the things that OSHA has done, this is a negative on my side, and maybe I'm rather cynical, but they increased the inspection budget substantially under the present administration. I think they increased the budget for inspections by something like $600 million. And their comments are that every dollar we spend on inspections will get back 5. So they're looking at really gaining a lot towards their budget. By the way, OSHA is self-supporting. They won't tell you that, but they are self-supporting on their fines. So anyway, any comments, you can let us know. Now, the new hazard communication program, pictograms and hazards, all going to be consistent. And this chart shows you what's going to be on all your labels and on the MSDSs. If it's a health hazard, if it's a flame, gas cylinders, corrosion, these are going to be the symbols that can be used. If they're not mandatory, like the environment and the aquatic toxicity, that's not mandatory. But if it's a gas cylinder, it's going to have to be labeled. Corrosive, it's going to have to be labeled. And on the label will be that symbol. So technically, all you got to do is learn the symbols, and you know what's in it. And then the revised standard is requiring consistent headings in a specified sequence, as we already mentioned. And there they are there. And now, employees now. And again, I'm trying to take the extreme side of this, but employees must be trained by the employer to read an MSDS or an SDS. Now, I'm not going to ask this. I have asked this in a group before. How many of you in this room can read an MSDS and understand it? And amongst safety directors, a lot of them couldn't do it. So you're going to have to learn how to read it so you can train your employees how to read an MSDS. And then you got to have them readily available. That doesn't mean a book locked up in a parts room. That means a book out where people can get at it easily. Easily. That means employees, EMT, a fireman can get at it easily. And then if, for instance, you've got a chemical spill, you know, the people coming to clean it up are going to need to know what spilled and what procedures they need to take. So they need to be readily available. Now, if you've got a plan of 1 million square feet, one book up near the lunchroom is inadequate. It's got to be around the plane. You would have to have 2 or 3 locations. Now, one way to get around this is to have it digital. Have several computer kiosks or whatever in your plant, and you can have MSDSs readily available on a computer program. You can buy one. You can develop one. There are some online that are free. There's one called MSDSX, not EX, but just plain exchange.com. And you can develop an MSDS program, and OSHA will accept that. If the employee can go to a computer screen, touch the screen, or hit the button and type in the product he wants, and up pops the MSDS, that's totally acceptable. And then you have several hours to give them a copy of it if they want a written copy, so they be able to access the printer and print it out. But this is, I believe, the wave of the future. I'll give you this little anecdote. I'm old enough to have remembered when there were payphones in every corner, and every time you went into a town, you had to find a facility. You didn't go to your GPS. You went to the local phone booth, pulled out the yellow pages, and found the address. Well, every time you go to get a yellow pages and pulled out, what was happening? Somebody yanked the page out. The page was gone. And you know, MSDS books, the same thing happens. And you can spend unbelievable time keeping them up to date by making sure someone didn't rip a page out. If it's digital, that can't happen. And so you've got to make sure that, though, however it is, if it's hard copies or digital, they got to be available. And then you've got to have access to the company HAZCOM program. One of the things you could do is put that on this same computer program. Have the hazard communication program for the company available. That must be available to the employees, and it's got to be taken seriously by everybody in the plant, because it's becoming a more serious issue. You know, when you look at television anymore, you know, you've got how many lawyers have put the ads on, you know, call 1-800-MISO, call 1-800-asbestos, or whatever. You've got all these folks, and they're just looking to sue somebody. And if they can find that you didn't make the information available, and someone didn't know, and now didn't understand what they were working with, you could be in trouble with OSHA, and who knows? You get the EEOC, you can get all these organizations on your case, and believe me, I've been in court enough times as a witness where the lawyers will pull everything in the book to make the blame be your company. And so you need to make sure that you follow these procedures and make sure your employees know it. Now, these next few pages, this is an area where you need to train your people. They need to know what the hazard panels are. What does red mean? What does blue mean? What is yellow? And then the white. I'm not going to tell you they're going to know all the white emblems, but they should. And then you've got to tell them that yellow is, what does the numbers mean? 0 is stable, 1 is unstable if heated, 4 means it can detonate. Now, they need to know that 4 is a lot worse than 1 on all of these, and red is fire. And they don't need to know the temperatures, but they need to know that 4 is pretty serious fire damage. And the same with the white. You know, the white is oxidizers, acids, alkalis, and that's something that you can train them, or hopefully they'll get familiar with in their own work area. And then health hazards are blue. Number 4 is deadly. In this emblem over here, number 3 is extremely hazardous. These are the areas that I think employees need to be most informed. And then we'll finish up here and take time for questions. We've got a few more pages on here, and you're welcome to use them. But what is considered a physical hazard? Number one, a chemical that is either combustible or compressed or explosive or flammable or an oxidizer. Now, you can't just take a group of people in a room. Many of them are going to have 5th grade education. Some are going to be engineers. But you can't just say, this chemical is combustible, it's explosive, it's flammable, and it's an oxidizer. Because I guarantee you some of them are going to look like oxidizer. What is that? They're not going to have any idea what an oxidizer is. Or you go to the next line, pyrophoric. What on earth is pyrophoric? What does it mean to be reactive? Or is it water reactive? Or organic peroxide? You know, you've got to be able to explain these things. And future office, we're going to be developing a huge glossary for these so you can explain them to your employees. Now, if you have a training program and you have oxidizer in that training program, and you have a page that you handed out that tells what an oxidizer is, and you took a few minutes, and Joe Jones signed off that he took the class and he was there and he was awake, that's going to put you way ahead of the game if he gets hurt by an oxidizer and tries to sue you and says he didn't know that that was harmful. Okay, so make sure you do this. Now, it really comes down to training, and more training. You know, it's like on real estate. What's the most important thing? Location, location, location. Well, in OSHA, it's training, training, training. And then the fourth one will be paperwork. But then what is considered a health hazard? Any chemical that can produce acute or chronic health effects in employees that are exposed to the chemical. Carcinogens, toxic agents, reproductive toxins. The ladies are going to want to know about that. Corrosive, sensitizer. What's a sensitizer? What's a hepatotoxin? You know, now, they're not going to remember all these things, but if you hand out a sheet with them defined, then you're going to be 20 points ahead if it comes to any kind of a OSHA inspection. You can actually hold a training program over a period of time. Make a manual with all this stuff in it and take 15 minutes on your toolbox talks and have your people work through this over a period of months and take a test, sign in, and you would be way ahead of the game if OSHA does any kind of inspections. Or worse than the inspections is if you have an accident. When you have an accident, the inspections are really, really severe. And then the other thing that can happen is if you have an employee, you had to fire. I've seen employees get fired because they deserve to be fired, and they run to every agency in town, and OSHA must inspect them. So they will do that. And then when an employee complains to OSHA, then OSHA must come to your plant, come to your facility, and do an inspection. They must follow up. So you can be in serious trouble. You have the nicest plant in the country, but you're going to have an inspection. And if the inspection, if they haven't been to your plant before, they will find something. So any questions? I think we'll end this for today. The rest of the comments here are who must comply, the purpose. Well, let's take a look at this. What does the standard require? Number one, inventory all your hazardous products. Know the importers and distributors. Have the program. Make sure containers are labeled. Every container in your plant must have a label. If you pour something from a 5-gallon can into a quart bottle, you must label it. When I do inspections, I find this is one of the biggest violations. They don't label the containers. They just figure they know what it is. I know it's bleach. I know it's chemical for cleaning grease. But OSHA comes in, and they see an unlabeled container. That's an automatic citation. And then make sure as we mentioned, the MSD is available. I'm about, I think, bored everybody to death, Craig, so I'll turn it back to you.
All right. Thank you very much, Frank. And if you have any questions, raise your hand. Just push that little hand sign if you have a question for Frank of anything that's been going along. Or else you can take a moment to write in questions farther on down on the tool, the Go to Meeting tool. And I'll just kind of take a look here and see if we have any questions. No hands up, so I'll see if anybody wrote in any questions. Nobody's written any questions, so I want to thank you, everybody, for participating. Please fill out the evaluations. They're so necessary for us, and we look forward to hosting you on another future Smartcast at some point later on. Thank you much, everybody. Have a good day.
Thank you.